the strain. Was it a bicycle? What is wrong with my brain? Is it the end of me? No, I must still believe. So I'm still alive, you see. Heck yeah, now I'm on my way. But let's stay focused, there's still a job in hand that we must do. Cameras start to click, we know what create is something new. So go Marty and Sarah and Mark and Matt, Owen, Smitty, McGrilly and Jamie Lane in the Archer County Band. The Archer County Band. The Archer County Band. The Archer County Band. Stop the clock, we're done, we're rolling. Sound the horn and sing that we are going. 27 hours, that is the time. So let's hop on the bus and let it shine, 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 shine. Say sha la 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 la, 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 sha la 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 la. Good afternoon, folks. You are very welcome to Bandido Talks. And who is the Bandido? Who is the Bandido going to bring into today's show? None other than Mr. Worldwide himself. Mr. 305. Mr. Worldwide. We're going down in this episode, folks. We're going to talk all about Pitbull and rapping. You know, folks, for those of you who actually have been paying attention to both the live shows that we do here on YouTube and the other live shows that we do over on Rumble, many months ago, remember the Super Bowl? You know, that big sporting event that takes place over in the US. And there's a halftime show that takes place normally. And some big, swanky artist, the flavor of the month, gets to do the halftime Super Bowl show. And you know, we did a show actually about the halftime Super Bowl show, the entertainment, because Bad Bunny, this rapper who won Album of the Year at the Grammys, Bad Bunny was the halftime entertainment at the Super Bowl. And you know, we did an episode back at the time where I was talking all about Bad Bunny's performance, and I was airing some of my opinions, let's just say. My opinions about rappers. And basically how I thought, in my opinion, rappers are basically field singers. The only reason that they rap is because they cannot sing. If they could sing, they would. Because, there's something more attractive about singing. There's something more melodic about singing. What is rapping? Rapping, to me, this was the argument I was making. Rapping is basically talking. It's doing what I'm doing right now. It's basically a form of talking. It's a poor man's attempt to try and be like a singer. Basically, that was my argument. And I'm looking at this dude, Bad Bunny. I went and listened to some of his music. Fucking music, if you want to call it that. And I listened to him, and he's doing all this fucking rapping, talking, basically. And I'm thinking to myself, this dude, Bad Bunny, got Album of the Year at the Grammys. You're telling me, of all the great musicians that exist on planet Earth, of all the great music that will be produced in any one year, the best representation of that music is Bad Bunny, someone who doesn't even sing. I mean, folks, for me, I break music down into two categories. I sort of always have. You have instrumental music, and then you have lyrical music. And when I say lyrical music, I mean the lyrics are sung. There is a singer. A singer creates a melody with the lyrics. We have a melody. It's melodic. It's singing. There are changes in pitch. The singer is exploring his or her range. You could be down low, you could be in the mid-range, you could be belting, you could be up in your falsetto. There's all of this variety that goes into singing the melody of any great song. That is how I would break music up. You have the instrumental music, like Hans Zimmer and John Williams from movie scores, or some other form of instrumental music without a singer. Great, I love my instrumental music, no problem. I don't need to always have a singer. But for me, if you're going to have lyrics, fuck me, some dude rapping. I mean, basically talking. That to me does not qualify as a category. That has always been my position. Instrumental music or lyrical music with a fucking singer, not a rapper. If you want to be a rapper, you go on to a talk show because you're basically talking. That was my argument. I'm looking at Bad Bunny. Bad Bunny, Album of the Year. Fuck me. Give me a break. The point I was making in that show was, Bad Bunny, to me, it is exceedingly unlikely, if we're talking about probabilities, that Bad Bunny, this rapper from South America, is representative of the best that humanity has to offer in terms of music. It is exceedingly unlikely. Now, you may then say, well, why did Bad Bunny win Album of the Year for all of his rapping? Well, the case that I was making back in that episode was, there is a political agenda behind why Bad Bunny won Album of the Year. It's not because he is actually the best musician or has the best album. There's a fucking political agenda, like most things. So there he was up on stage. It was at the time, remember all these anti-ICE protests over in the US? Remember there were a couple of deaths? Remember they were the liberal citizens of the world, the left over in the US, were losing their shit over these ICE raids, trying to deport the illegal people who had come into the country. Remember there was all of this friction? And you had the protesters clashing with the ICE agents, and there was all of this, rioting, we could say, and turmoil and turbulence. Well, the Grammys just so happened to take place around that time. And Lord Jesus, what happened? Well, Bad Bunny. Bad Bunny gets Album of the Year, and he gets up on stage along with Billie Eilish and all the rest of them. And they're all giving their politically charged speeches. Surprise, surprise. They're not really talking about the music. No, there's a political agenda. So look, Bad Bunny wins Album of the Year. Clearly there's a political agenda behind it. Then it gets one step better, because not only does he win Album of the Year as a fucking rapper who talks in his songs, but then he appears at the Super Bowl. And that's what we did our show on. In talking about the Super Bowl. About how he's bringing his culture to the Super Bowl and all of this sort of stuff. So look, if you have watched that episode over on Rumble, I can't remember what episode it was months ago. But if you have seen it, you will know that I am not a fan of rapping. I do not like rapping at all. That genre of music, if we want to call it that, I don't know what to call it. It just looks and sounds like talking to me. And you know, would you call what I'm doing right now musical? The act of rapping, I don't see it as musical at all. It's not melodic. There's no exploration of the person's range. There's no melody. Fuck me, folks. We need a melody. I need a melody. If we're talking about music with lyrics, I need a melody. I need a top line that's melodic. And rapping doesn't do it for me. Okay. So that's a brief recap of that previous episode. I have a beef, you could say, with rapping. I just think that it is a poor man's attempt to be a singer. That's effectively how I've always viewed it. The people who are rappers can't fucking sing. And because they can't sing very well, they've decided to talk. And they call it rapping. And it has never spoke to me. Now look, I'm just giving you my opinion. It's just my opinion. I understand there's a diversity of people out there in the world. There are a shit ton of people who love rapping. They love their favourite rapper. Well, good on you. That's fine. You have your own personal tastes. I have mine. I don't recognise rapping really as a form of music for the reasons that I've just explained. It's talking to me. But folks, you know, do you ever notice, I said this in the description of our show today, you know, do you ever notice how in the natural world, you know, when we look at all the species, the plant species, the animal species, all the bacteria, the fungi, you know, we look at the living world in general. You know the way in science we desperately try to categorize everything. We try to put this species into this genus into this family, etc., into this order, etc., etc., etc. We try to arrange the natural world into categories. And we want every creature, we want every species to fit neatly into the category. But what happens, folks? There are always exceptions in biology. There are always exceptions in the natural world. You will always have a particular group of creatures. And you know, most of the creatures adhere to the general characteristics and behaviours of said group. But then you'll always get a few who buck the trend. They are exceptions to the rule. They sort of are overlapping in some ways with the other members of the group, but then they diverge. And they're sort of unique. And we have these all over biology and all over the living world, the natural world in general. We have exceptions. Animals that don't neatly fit into these predetermined categories. And you know, what we're going to learn today, folks, is that the Bandido, despite the fact that on the whole, overall, I do not like rapping. I will, on the most part, generally, I will not be listening to any rap music. It's not my cup of cha whatsoever. But of course, folks, there's always one exception, isn't there? There's one exception. There is one rapper who I will listen to. And it's Mr. Worldwide himself. Mr. 305. Mr. Pitbull. He is the only exception to this broad rule that I have. Normally, the category of rappers, normally, I wouldn't go anywhere near that type of music. It's just not for me. But you see, there's one person called Pitbull, and he is a rapper, but he also spills out of that category of rapping, and he somehow has made his way into another category that I actually like. And I do like. Confession, folks. I actually do like Pitbull's music. I actually, if I have to be honest, I actually like his rapping. I think he's got a great voice. Now, he can't sing for shit, for what I can tell. I've never seen him sing before. So he's still doing this kind of talking. But you know, he's got a really cool voice. I have to give him that. He's got an excellent voice. Just a speaking voice. And when he does his rapping, you know, he seems to buck the trend. He bucks the trend for me because I was thinking about this a few days ago, folks. Some of Pitbull's old music from the early 2010s started to flash up on my algorithm, on my feed. The algorithm was throwing me on my feed all of this Pitbull music. And I started to listen to it. It's the first time in years that I've really listened to Pitbull's music. And instantly, as soon as I started to hear some of his songs, you know, Timber, Give Me Everything Tonight with Neo. What's that other one he has, you know? We Never Will. Stop the Party. You know that one there? Yeah, yeah, yeah. That one. I don't know what it's called. Don't Stop the Party. Maybe that's what it's called, is it? You know, I started to listen to all of these Pitbull songs. And you know, I was initially listening to them and I was thinking to myself, I had this weird feeling. And I was thinking, I actually like this. And I felt actually guilty. Initially, I was thinking to myself, hold on, but I don't like rap music. That's what I was telling myself. So I'm hearing Pitbull's music, not just his biggest hits, but some of his other songs. And I'm starting to groove a little bit. And I'm starting to think, I like this. And then I stopped myself and said, hold on, no, I'm not a rap guy. You know, I'm an Oasis man, I'm a U2 man, I'm a Policeman. You know, I like Phil Collins. You know, I like, who the fuck else do I like? You know, 80s, 90s music, that's my cup of cha. You know, Bon Jovi, I can take a bit of Bon Jovi. You know, I'm more into that type of music. You know that classic rock where you have a singer? But notice something. You know, U2, Bon Jovi, Queen, with Freddie Mercury, of course, Brian May, all the lads. The Police with Sting. You know, there's something, these are all bands. Mostly. Phil Collins, you know, he's a bit of a solo artist, but he was in a band. But you know, most of them are bands. And what does a band have? Certainly back in the, you know, 80s and 90s. When you look at U2 and Queen and all these types of artists, they're all bands. But what does every band have? They have a front man. They have a singer. They've got some flamboyant, charismatic entertainer who can not only sing really fucking well, but he also knows how to entertain and perform the song live. So, you know, that tends to be my type of music. I like high energy music. I like music where you've got a front man who isn't afraid, you know, to put the instrument away, to get out there with the microphone, out at the front of the stage, and stick his arse out there. You know, really get out there, sing. Not just sing though, but perform. Actually perform the song live. That's what I really like. I really like those bands whereby the lead frontman captivates the audience, where the lead frontman has aura. There's a magnetism. He's electric. That's what I'm after. And whenever I've always looked at the rappers, I just look at them as field singers. They look like they're trying too hard. That's just, again, it's only my opinion. But that's what I feel. It feels like they're trying too hard. Talking into the microphone, nothing melodic. They don't really have the band setting in the traditional sense. It's kind of them, they're out there doing their raps, and it just doesn't speak to me at all. In other words, I always found their performances lacking. And perhaps that was to do because whenever I think of lead singers, what are lead singers doing? They are singing. Singing. When you sing like Bono, like Freddie Mercury, like Sting, like Axl Rose, like Liam Gallagher, when you sing, you're able to use your range. This is what all these guys do. So, sometimes, as I said a few minutes ago, sometimes you might be singing lower in your range, then you're in a mid-range, then you're belting. And then sometimes some of these really talented singers who have a lot of control over their voice, these male singers, they can slip up into their falsetto. You've got this dynamic range of singing, and it's very interesting to my ear. I like to hear this dynamism in the human voice. And I don't think you get that with rapping. Rapping's just like, yo, it's just in the same range. There's nothing dynamic about it. And so, here I am listening to Pitbull, and I was starting to enjoy the music. And then I stopped myself and I said, no. Look, I'm not a rapper. And then I tried to find an answer as to why I was actually enjoying Pitbull's music. And here's the initial answer that I came up with. And this is interesting, folks. There's something to learn here. Something important to learn here. So initially, I listened to Pitbull's music. It's coming up on my YouTube feed. I listened to some of his songs, some of his biggest hits, some of his not so well-known songs, and I'm starting to find that I'm grooving along. I'm actually enjoying it. But as soon as that dawns on me that I'm enjoying this, I put the brakes on. And I say, no, I'm not a rapper. Why am I enjoying this? This doesn't make sense. I actually had a bit of cognitive dissonance. Believe it or not, the Bandido put the phone down, and I was thinking, hold on. I did a show a few months ago criticizing Bad Bunny. And whenever I listen to Bad Bunny's music, it's fucking dreadful. I hate it. It's just so offensive to my ear. Not for me. And most of these rappers, fucking Jay-Z and all these other ones, not for me. Offensive to my ear. I will turn it off immediately when it comes on. So here I am listening to Pitbull. And I'm thinking, why am I liking this? But then I thought I had found the answer. I pulled out an explanation. And here's what my explanation was initially. And I sort of sighed in relief. I thought, oh, that makes sense. Okay, I got it now. That's why I like it. So initially what I thought was all of Pitbull's songs have a singer in them. So it's not Pitbull that I like, it's the singer who is collaborating with Pitbull. That's what I thought. So, take a song like Timber. You know that Timber goes, we're going down, we're going timber, we're gonna move, we're gonna dance. She's singing that. That's a terrible representation of her voice, by the way. But, Kesha, she's singing the song, ooh, 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 and she's got all the melody going. Woo, and then I thought to myself, that's it. Kesha's singing in Timber. You've got Neo singing, tonight, na 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 na. He's singing the melody. So my initial thought was, the reason why I'm listening to Pitbull's music is because He's got singers. And what I actually like about the music isn't Pitbull, it's the melody that's being sang by the singers. So I was sort of content with that explanation. Now, I need to just pause for a second and remind you of something. When I was listening to these songs, I was actually initially listening to the official studio recordings. So I was just listening to the recorded, the big, popular, millions and even billions of viewed, billions of views on these original recorded videos. So I wasn't looking at any live shows. It was the original recording, and I was pretty satisfied with my explanation. I thought that makes sense. It's not Pitbull. It's not Pitbull that's making this song attractive. It's the singer that's collaborating with Pitbull. Okay, great. So I listened to a few of those songs, and I thought, yeah, this is stacking up now, because I can see and hear each time Pitbull's in a song, another one, Jennifer Lopez on the floor, and where does it go? Na 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 na. Again, Jennifer Lopez is singing the melody. Pitbull's coming in there. And again, I listen to that song and think, no, it's J-Lo. It's her singing. It's her melody. That's what I'm attracted to. Not the rapping. Great. Okay. So I was all content with myself. I'm listening to these studio recordings of Pitbull collaborating with other singers. I'm feeling a little bit guilty because normally I don't like rap music. I don't like rappers. And I was feeling a bit guilty initially because here I am actually enjoying these songs that Pitbull is in. And then I thought to myself, no. The cognitive dissonance, I could get rid of it because it's nothing to do with Pitbull. It's all to do with the singers. That's what I thought. And I could have stopped there, folks. But then, here's what I decided to take the experiment because I thought, you know what? Let's be fair. I always say on the show, folks, the Bandido is a fair man. I am a fair man. And even though that explanation is a perfectly satisfactory explanation, I mean, that could absolutely have been true. I decided, you know what? Let me be fair to Pitbull here. Let me be fair to him. So what I decided to do was, remember I said earlier that all of these songs were the official studio recordings. I'm a man who really likes live music. I actually am not that much of a fan of studio recorded music. And the reason why is because I like to see the artist do it live. There's no hiding live. There really isn't. And for me, while there are some great studio recordings, I'm not saying that I dislike the studio recordings. It's just, for me personally, if I'm listening to a U2 song, for example, if I'm listening to, Bad by U2, that song that goes, if you twist and turn away, wide awake. I want to see that live. I want to see that and hear that performed live. Because the studio version's good, but I want to see and hear Bono bring that song out on to the stage in front of a live crowd. And I want to see how U2 perform it live. It's the same with Queen and Freddie Mercury. Again, a song like Radio Gaga. Da-na-na-na, na-na-na-na-na. Na 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 na. Yeah, I want to see that live. I want to see how Freddie performs that live. So I will always, if I have a choice, I will always choose a live performance over a studio recorded performance because I feel like live is more authentic. You cannot hide behind the Studio G wizardry. Like, we all know this, folks. Anybody who is interested in music knows that you have a lot of studio trickery. You can do a lot of stuff in the studio that can kind of compensate for some of the shortcomings that are present in the artist in question. You know, we've got things nowadays like fucking auto-tune and pitch correction, all this shit. You know, putting stuff onto a grid, quantizing everything. You know, I don't want any of that. I want to see the musician out in the flesh, in front of a crowd with nowhere to hide, because that really shows me what they're made of. That shows me how strong the song is, and it shows me how strong they are as a performer. So in general, I'll always choose a live version of a song over a studio recorded one. So this is where I had to then pause, because I said to myself, you know, I'm listening to all of these Pitbull songs, but they are the official studio recordings. So, you know, my initial explanation to try and explain why I was enjoying Pitbull's music was, you know, it's to do with the singer that he's collaborating with. And then I thought, well, let's be fair to Pitbull here. How about I look at some of these songs live? Let me watch and listen to Pitbull when he's live, perhaps singing alongside the singer with whom he collaborated on the song. So this is what I did. I thought to myself, let's be fair to Pitbull, let's run this experiment. I've listened to the studio recordings. I think the reason why I like Pitbull's music is because of the singers, but let me run the experiment fully. Let's see it live. Now, an interesting thing happened, folks. You know, when I watched Bad Bunny at the Superbowl, it didn't do it for me at all. I'm not saying Bad Bunny's a bad person, even though he's called Bad Bunny. It's just his aura, how he performed live, didn't do it for me. It's just, I just wasn't a fan of whatever energy he was giving off, wasn't doing it for me. So I watched Bad Bunny live at the Super Bowl. No, not for me. And I talk about it on that show, on Rumble. Now here's the interesting thing though. Because when I went and listened to Pitbull live, and I watched Pitbull live, something changed, folks. Something changed. And there's actually something really important here for us to learn. So stick with me here. There is an important thing for us to learn. When I watched Pitbull live, so I basically watched Pitbull live in two specific contexts. The first context in which I watched Pitbull live was him performing the song live with the singer. So I would watch Pitbull perform on the floor with Jennifer Lopez. I would watch Pitbull perform Timber with Kesha at some music awards show. I would watch Pitbull again perform Give Me Everything Tonight with Neo live. So that was the first context in which I observed Pitbull. I would watch him performing with the artist, with the singer, live. Something interesting happened because this is what I expected. I expected Pitbull to look like a spur wheel. That's what I was thinking. I was thinking to myself, Pitbull's going to come out onto the stage here, he's going to do his rapping, and the singer is just going to completely outcompete him, basically. The singer is going to overshadow him. That's what I thought. Now, what I saw and heard was completely different. It was actually the reverse. Pitbull overshadowed the singer. And I don't mean this in a bad way. I don't mean that Pitbull was going out there to try and one-up the singer. No, I don't mean it in that way. What I mean is, when I was observing the two on the same stage, performing the same song, whenever I assessed both of their performances, I couldn't believe the conclusion that I was coming to. I was thinking to myself, I actually prefer Pitbull's input. I prefer Pitbull's energy. Pitbull had an aura on stage, And the way he was delivering his rap, he had so much punch. He had so much energy. He was sweating like fuck. He was giving it his absolute all out there on stage. There was no lip syncing that I could detect. He was out there in front of the crowd like a front man. That is the first thing I thought. Whenever I saw Pitbull, Pitbull is the only rapper that I have ever seen up on stage who actually looks like a front man, like a lead singer. Now, he doesn't sing, he raps, but his aura is that of a lead singer. And I couldn't believe it. I was scratching my head going, the singer has less aura than Pitbull. And that surprised me, I have to be honest. I found that surprising. Now, I'm not saying that the singer was bad, not at all. The singer was excellent. They performed excellently. It's just Pitbull was a notch or two above them, and that surprised me. So then, I watched a few of these performances, and I thought to myself, well, maybe this was a fluke. You know, maybe this first performance was a fluke. So I start to watch more of these collaboration performances with the singer and Pitbull performing the song live. And every time, Pitbull, you know, comes out on top as from my perspective, he comes out on top as the focus, as the center point, as the most important figure on the stage, which then led me to a very interesting thought. It put me into an interesting frame of mind. And it made me think about something. And I thought to myself, well, surely Pitbull, when Pitbull goes out on tour, surely Pitbull isn't going to be, you know, bringing Neo around the world. Surely Neo isn't going to be bringing Kesha around the world. Surely Neo isn't going to be bringing Jennifer Lopez around the world on his world tour just to sing one song in his set. So then I started to think, well, okay, I'm watching these collaboration performances, but when Pitbull tours, he must be performing these songs without the singer. And so I thought to myself, if Pitbull is actually, in my opinion, more integral to the live performance than the singer, then I thought to myself, well, how about I actually either confirm or deny this suspicion by watching Pitbull perform the song without the singer? So that was the second context in which I was observing and analysing Pitbull. So after I had watched a bunch of these collaboration performances, I said, okay, well, I'm coming to a very unsuspecting conclusion here. I'm coming to conclusions that I did not expect. So let's now watch Pitbull perform the song with the singer as a backing track, and it's just him on the stage. So again, I'm a fair man. And so I went and started to watch some of Pitbull's live shows without the singers. And I couldn't believe what I was seeing. He didn't need the singers. All he needed was the backing track. He didn't actually need the singer on stage. He owned the stage. In fact, the more I looked at it, the more I thought, man, part of me nearly prefers Pitbull performing the song on his own compared to when he's performing it in collaboration with a singer. These were the conclusions I was starting to come to. So I start to watch a whole bunch of Pitbull performances where it's just him out on stage with his group of dancers, and the singer isn't present. The singer is just being pumped through the PA using the studio recorded vocal. And initially I thought, surely this isn't going to work. Surely Pitbull, a rapper, isn't going to get up on stage and rap his way through this song without the singer live, present, in person, using the singer's studio recorded vocal. Surely Pitbull isn't going to get out on stage and pull this off. And holy fuck, folks, guess what? He did. He absolutely pulled it off. And initially, part of me almost wanted to reject the conclusions that I was coming to, because I, for so long, had in my mind relegated rappers to this group of basically, field singers. That's what I thought. I thought they were field singers. I thought they were, desperate to be the frontman singer that they could never be, and they had created this sort of genre of talking through songs to make up for their shortcomings musically. That's sort of what I thought. And to a large degree, I do still think that. Most of the rappers, I've no interest in them. They do look like field singers, and they do look like they're trying too hard to be, to basically fill the boots that a singer would normally fill. But Pitbull taught me something interesting, because here he was. He wasn't singing a melody. He wasn't doing anything. He was just doing what he always does. He raps and he uses that really cool voice. And, here he is out on stage with his dancers. And I'm going to go back to something I said earlier. Because here's the thing that really surprised me about Pitbull. He is a frontman. And I couldn't believe this. Most rappers, whenever I see them, they are not frontmen. Not for me. They are not in the same stratosphere as Freddie Mercury, Bono, Roger Daltrey, Phil Collins, Bon Jovi. No. Just no. They are not there. They do not have the charisma, the talent, the range, the showmanship. They just don't have it. I would relegate them to a category 2, 3, 4 notches below a lead frontman singer of a band. But Pitbull, I have to be honest, folks, and maybe you'll agree or disagree, I don't know. I can only speak from my own perspective. But for me, Pitbull, and I couldn't believe the conclusion that I was coming to, but this is how I felt. Pitbull, I actually would put him in the top category of lead frontmen and performers. And he's a rapper. He doesn't even sing. Which tells us something really interesting, folks. Let me speak to the musicians out there. Specifically, let me speak to the singers out there. You see, all you singers, you could all learn a thing or two from Pitbull. Because you know what Pitbull has when he goes out on stage? He may not have a marvelous singing voice. He may not have an exquisite range. He may not have melody built into his bones. But you know what he does have? He has aura and presence. And he has fuck tons of charisma. He knows exactly who he is. And he knows exactly who he wants to be up on stage. And you see, when he gets up there, there's not a shred of doubt in that man's mind whatsoever. He owns the stage. He prances around, not in an arrogant or distasteful way, but he moves around the stage as though he was Freddie Mercury. And that's not him. I'm not saying that he's, pulling off this grand deception. No, he's a rapper. He's not pretending to be someone else. He's not, desperately trying to convince people that he's in the same broad category of brilliance of a Freddie Mercury or a Bono. No, he is absolutely being true to who he is. And boy, does he bring a phenomenal energy to the stage. Folks, I was captivated watching Pitbull live. Captivated. And there was a particular performance that he did at iHeartRadio many years ago of the song Timber. And he was out there with his dancers, and he knew how to command the stage. He knew when was just enough. He didn't get too excitable. He didn't go over the top. He didn't disgrace himself up there, jumping around like a fucking retard. He struck this brilliant balance between rapping the song, moving around, giving off this aura, giving this energy out to the audience. You know, he was sweaty and he was giving his absolute best in that moment. He was present. And you know, I see singers. You know, I watch singers, I listen to singers. And there are many singers in the world who have far better singing voices than Pitbull. You know, they have a phenomenal range. They have a great level of skill with their voice. But you know what they don't have? They have fucking no aura. They have no stage presence. They have no idea how to work the audience. They have no idea who they want to be. They're just up there. My lovely horse running through the field. You know, it's like fucking Father Ted and Dougal up on stage at the Eurovision Song Contest. You know, they look stiff and fucking awkward. Now, I'm not saying that, you know, Ted and Dougal aren't talented, obviously, but in terms of their appearance, you know, I want you to go watch the Father Ted episode, the Eurovision Song Contest episode. Go look at Ted and Dougal when they're up on stage. My lovely horse running. Stiff as pokers. No charisma. No stage presence. No energy. No aura. They have no command over who's on the stage with them. They haven't got the audience in their palm. They don't know how to direct the energy in the room. They don't know how to pace themselves throughout a song, throughout a set. They don't know when enough is too much. They don't know when they're withholding too much. They don't know how to strike the balance between, you know, being energetic enough to get the crowd involved, but not to be running around like a fucking retard who doesn't know what they're doing. You know, I see musicians and singers, and they have all the ability in the world, but they haven't got one drop of Pitbull's charisma and stage management. And you know, I'm happy. I'm happy that I ran this experiment, folks. I'm happy that I actually took the time to look at Pitbull, not just from a studio recorded, you know, version of the song, but to watch the man live. And watching him live did give me a new appreciation for rapping. I have to say, it gave me a new appreciation because what it showed me was that everything that you do on stage isn't so dependent on how marvelously melodic your voice is, on how great your range is. Folks, there's something to be said for knowing who you are and bringing exactly what you know you want to be before the public. Pitbull has a shit ton of charisma. He knows who he wants to be. He's not pretending to be something he isn't. He is a rapper. He's not a great singer. He doesn't need to be. And doesn't that tell us something interesting, folks? Doesn't it? You know, so many of us think that we need to be so unbelievably skilled at the thing that we're doing. We get lost in the weeds of skill. I need to be able to sing pitch perfect. Folks, let me tell you something. You see, whenever Pitbull is performing live, he's sweaty. You know, is he pitch perfect when he's doing his rap? No. He's in the moment. He's present. Pitbull doesn't look to me like he's rehearsing from a script. Yeah, he has his dancers around him. He has certain positions that he needs to be on the stage at certain points of the song. But Pitbull doesn't look like he is delving into his memory archive to just regurgitate some fucking nonsense that he's learned years ago. No, Pitbull looks like he is present. He is right there in the moment with the crowd. And I think the crowd feels it. And you know the reason why I think that? Because I feel it. I can feel it through a fucking computer screen. When I watch Pitbull live, I feel like he isn't on autopilot. Folks, how many singers do we see? You know, whether it's in our local town or elsewhere, how many singers do we see get up on the stage and they just punch it in? You know, they get up there, yeah, na 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 na. Yeah, they're pitch perfect. They technically perform the song well, but it is boring as fuck. No charisma, no stage presence, no audience interaction, nothing. No movement. They just sit there. Does Pitbull do that? Fuck no. He does not. And you see, that's the interesting thing that I learned from him. I can actually stomach rapping so long as it is packaged in the way that Pitbull does it. Now, isn't that an interesting conclusion for someone like me to come to? You know, someone who, for all of his life, has really disliked the genre of rapping. I've never liked it. Isn't it an interesting conclusion for me to come to actually realize, well, hold on. Is there something wrong with rapping in and of itself? Or is it the people who are executing the art of rapping that's the problem? And that is the distinction that I have now made. And I have no one to thank. The only person that I have to thank for this is Pitbull. Pitbull has helped me realize that rapping in and of itself is absolutely fine. For me, this is what he's helped me learn. Now look, people are going to disagree. Some people are going to love these other rappers and the way they go on and, you know, however they perform their raps on stage. I'm just talking from my own perspective. Pitbull he fuses both worlds together. That's how I view Pitbull. He's like this. If you've ever watched Yu-Gi-Oh! The card game, there's a card in Yu-Gi-Oh! A magic card called Polymerization. Polymerization is a magic card that allows you to take one monster card and another monster card and fuse them together to create a new, more powerful, more potent monster. Pitbull is like the magic card Polymerization. Pitbull has somehow managed to fuse the world of rap and the world of what I would call melodic singing together. And interestingly, he is so good at what he does that he doesn't even need the singer on stage with him. Now sure, look, is the singer still incredibly important to the song? Yes. Pitbull doesn't get up on stage without the singer singing through a PA with their pre-recorded vocal. It's not as if he gets up on the stage and just raps. No, he still uses the singer. It's still a collaborative effort. But he doesn't actually need the singer beside him carrying the performance. Pitbull can carry the performance just fine on his own. All he needs is the singer's pre-recorded vocal to come through the PA. That's it. He just needs the audience to hear the melody from the singer in the background while he does his rapping, and he can take care of the rest. He can deal with all of the performative elements of the song and of the show and of the set as a whole. And he's like a fusion. He's like a fuser of worlds. And what he has taught me is that I actually can like rapping. And I would never have said that, you know, up until 2 weeks ago. He has actually shown me that I can like rapping. It just needs to be packaged and delivered with this fusion mindset. Pitbull has this knack for bringing together melodic music with a singer and then fusing it with his rapping. And then once he takes it out live, folks, realize this is really unusual. Something unusual that I've noticed, and I've mentioned it already. Most rappers that I see, they do not have a lead frontman singer aura when they're up on stage. They don't look like frontmen. Not to me. They just don't have that, they don't have that lead singer charisma. You know the way when you see a lead singer, like, I keep using the same examples, you know, because I like U2, you know, someone like Bono, you know, when Bono gets up there, it's so muscular, it's so visceral. The way he interacts with the audience, the way he interacts with his band, the way he interacts with the energy from the audience. It's so powerful how he does it. Certainly back in his younger days. I mean, he's a bit neutered now. You know, he's in his mid-60s. But, you know, back in his 20s and 30s, man, could he command a stadium of people. He had a stadium of people in the palm of his hand. Same with Freddie Mercury and all of these great lead singers. These rappers, no. Most of them do not give me that vibe. They kind of get up there, you know, they do their little, you know, they have their baggy trousers on, and they do their, you know, yo, 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 yo. And they look, honestly, folks, they do look a bit like Ted and Dougal at the Eurovision Song Contest. You know, they're kind of stiff. You know, you watch Freddie Mercury, and you know he's got his arms, and you look at Bono, and you know they move vigorously. They use the energy from the room. They allow that energy to inundate their being, and they use it. They know how to channel the energy so that they take from the audience and they give back out to the audience. And then as they give more energy out to the audience, they get more energy back. And it's this beautiful, virtuous cycle of energy transfer between lead frontman and audience. It's just, when it's done properly, it's magnificent. I don't see rappers doing that. But there's always an exception, folks. And Pitbull, to me, I have no problem saying. Now, I know some of the, you know, the Queen fans, the U2 fans, the Bon Jovi fans, these people are going to say, Mr. Bandido, you're putting Pitbull in the same category of frontman as Freddie Mercury? Catch a grip. Look, I can only speak from my own perspective. And I can only tell you how I feel when I watch all of these people. And I have no problem at all putting Pitbull in the same category as Bono, Freddie Mercury, Roger Daltrey, Axl Rose, all of these people, as a frontman. I'm not saying that he's got the equivalent vocal prowess, the same vocal capabilities as Freddie Mercury, Bono, etc. That's not what I'm saying. Fuck me, folks. I'm talking about his ability to be a showman, his ability to manage the stage, manage the audience's energy, his ability to perform the song live, not in a studio, live. And isn't it fascinating? From my perspective, Pitbull doesn't even need the singer on stage with him. He can carry it himself. So now I go back to my original conclusion. Remember I said, folks, that whenever I listened to the studio versions of Pitbull's songs, remember I said, oh, it must be the singer. It must be the singer, you know, performing, singing the melody. That's the reason why I like the songs. It's nothing to do with Pitbull. Incorrect. Pitbull is every bit as integral to that song as the singer. And I would actually argue that live, out of the studio, live, I would argue that Pitbull is even more important to the song than the singer when we get into the live arena. Because Pitbull, to me, has that unique quality. I mean, folks, it is very difficult to be a frontman. It is very, very difficult to be an outright frontman. Extremely difficult. For you to be out there on the front of the stage, it's just you and the audience. I mean, there is nowhere to hide. And I think we've all probably seen people, folks, who have tried to be frontman and it hasn't quite worked out. And it's a bit, I don't want to use the word cringy necessarily, but it's underwhelming, let's just say. It's very, very hard to take that audience energy and to actually emit it, to actually throw it back out to the audience in a way that the audience actually buys what it is that you're doing on stage. Because you're trying to sell them a performance. And in order to do that, you need to give them a reason to believe in what it is that you're doing up there. Pitbull can do this. And I've never seen another rapper be able to do this other than Pitbull. But what Pitbull has taught me is that it is possible. It is possible for the Bandido to actually like rap music. In theory. Now, will I be listening to rap music without a melodic singing vocal? Probably not. I think that would be a step too far. You know, I probably will need some sense of melody in the song. But Pitbull has definitely shown me that rappers can be far more capable than what I once thought. And that's why I call Pitbull the exception for me. Pitbull is like a frontman. He's like a leader of a band. He has that energy. He has that charisma. He has that raw potential in his personality. And you know, what is the lesson here, folks? Well, you know, we talk all the time on the show about being open. About being open to having your conclusions challenged. About being open to having your worldview challenged. We always talk about never just digging your trench. You know that people love to dig their trench? Down they go. They dig away from the surface of Earth. And the further down they dig their hole, the further they isolate themselves from other people at the surface. And you know, what happens when you dig a deep enough hole? Well, you exclude other people's information and feedback. And you know, people are far too prone to doing this. People like to have concrete black and white worldviews, whereby they dig their hole and they say, you know what, I don't want to listen to anybody else's opinion. I don't want to have my worldview challenged. I just want to dig my hole and I want to live the rest of my life, you know, 1,000 meters underground in my dark hole. Never listening to anybody else because I don't want my opinion. I don't want my worldview challenged. You know, that's called, folks, putting yourself in an echo chamber. And we don't want to do that. And the lesson here is, by just pure fluke, we could say, you know, the algorithm decided to throw me Pitbull's music. I don't know why it did. But I saw Pitbull's head come up on the feed, and I went, oh, I know him. That's Pitbull. That's the rapper. And I thought, fucking rappers. You know, the fucking rappers. Why am I getting a rapper up on my feed? And then the song, I recognized the song and went, oh, that's the song Timber that he does with Kesha. I like that song. Because that was a song from my childhood. Whenever I was around, you know, let's say 13, 14, 15 years of age, I listened to that song quite a bit. So I saw that song and went, oh, well, if memory serves me correctly, I actually like that song. So I click into it. And then that's where the process starts. And the lesson here is, folks, it would have been so easy for me to just, you know, stick with my current opinion about rappers. It would have been easy for me to say, Pitbull's just another one of them. And whenever I listened to Pitbull singing on the studio, rapping on the studio recorded version of the song, I initially came to this conclusion, no, it's nothing to do with Pitbull, it's to do with the singer. I could have just left it there and been, you know, content, let's say, with my conclusions. But this is a great example, folks, of running an experiment fairly. I know that it's very important to watch a musician live. It's very important. You should never rely on a studio recorded version of a song, ever. Because, as we've already said, there's a lot of studio trickery that can go into a recorded version of a song. And you only truly get to see what the song is made of and what the artist is made of when you see them up on stage in front of an audience singing it live. It's only then do you see what they're made of. And so I had to be fair. At this stage, I hadn't watched Pitbull live. So, I was lacking. I didn't have all the information. Yes, I had Pitbull's studio recorded rap, that's true, but I didn't have all the information. I hadn't watched the man perform it live. So I had to make sure that I wasn't digging my trench, that I wasn't digging my hole, that I wasn't looking to deliberately just avoid some new feedback that might challenge what I thought I knew. And so I go watch him live. And when I watch him live, I learn something very interesting. And what I've learned is that I can digest a certain amount of rapping. There's nothing wrong with rapping and rappers in and of themselves. It's just more how the rapping is integrated into a piece of music. If you're mixing the rapping in with a sort of pop song framework, where you've got a bit of a singer's melody, where you've got sort of something that resembles a traditional melodic song, and you bring the rapper in along with that, well, if it's delivered in the right way, I can absolutely not just stomach rapping, but actually enjoy it. And that's the thing. I have actually enjoyed Pitbull's rapping. It's not as if I've been just, gritting my teeth, trying to make my way to the end of the song. No. Not only is he a great performer, but I've actually enjoyed his rapping on stage. I actually like it. It really adds something to the song. And I didn't expect to come to that conclusion. And I'll finish with this, folks, because this is I'll tell you what the real nail in the coffin was. The conclusive piece of evidence that I got actually came from the following circumstance. So, I've already explained everything about Pitbull and why I actually like him as a rapper. But I had one last experiment to run. You'll notice that I've been running a whole bunch of experiments here. I've listened to Pitbull and the singer in the studio recorded version. That's the first experiment. The second experiment, I listened to Pitbull and the singer on the same stage singing and rapping live at the same time. That was the second experiment. The third experiment was watching Pitbull live on his own without the singer present on stage, using a vocal backing track. So I had ran those three experiments, and I've come to the conclusions that I've explained. But there was one final experiment that I had to run, the fourth and final experiment. And you know what that was? I needed to watch the singer perform the song live without Pitbull. And this was the true nail in the coffin for my old worldview about rappers. This was the true nail in the coffin. Now, I'm not looking to take a pot shot at anybody here. I'm just telling you how I felt. So I went and got a live version of Kesha singing Timber. So Kesha, who performed the song with Pitbull, Timber, on the studio recorded version, and I think there's one live performance out there of the two of them together, which I enjoyed, even though I think Kesha was a bit sick or ill at the time, I still enjoyed it. I then went and got a couple of live performances of Kesha singing Timber without Pitbull and without the original arrangement. So it's just the singer now. It's just the singer, the lyrics, and the melody, and the instrumental backing. Now, you would think, folks, wouldn't you? Given what I've already explained about how I really enjoy bands, how I enjoy, lyrical music sang by a singer with a melody, you would think that I would have enjoyed Kesha's solo performance of Timber the most, based on what I previously thought. Because she's the singer. She has the melody. She has the range. She has all the dynamism that comes with pitch shifts across that range. which can be quite dramatic, especially if you have a big range. And what did I find out? What did I discover? Well, I put on Kesha's solo version of Timber. And folks, I can only speak from my own perspective. You know what it was like? It was like a soggy, wet sock. We've talked about soggy, wet socks before on the show, folks. Who wants to wear soggy, wet socks? Anybody out there want to wear soggy, wet socks? I certainly don't. When you removed Pitbull entirely from the song, the energy dropped out of the arse of the song. Gone. It was like the life had been sucked out of the song, and it became this sort of slightly depressing, lacking in energy piece of music. That's just from my perspective. Now look, some people in the comments section loved it. Some people said, oh, Kesha, this is the way the song is supposed to be performed. You're the best, Kesha, blah, blah, blah. Kesha doesn't have the same frontman energy as Pitbull. She doesn't have the same charisma as Pitbull. I'm not saying she doesn't have charisma. She does. She's a good performer. No question about it. And she definitely has charisma. She definitely has some stage presence. But she doesn't have as much of those things as Pitbull. And holy fuck, even though she's singing the song well, she's singing it well, her band is performing it well, there's nothing technically wrong with the song. But you see, without Pitbull, it was a neutered version of the song. That's what I thought. And I couldn't believe it. I thought to myself, what? This is actually quite remarkable. It's remarkable what Pitbull actually brings to this music. In the past, I would have thought, he's just rapping, he's just fucking talking, yum, 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 yum. I wouldn't have valued that. But you see, whenever you take the song out of the studio and you put it into a live setting, I thought Kesha really struggled to capture the energy of that song. And it's a high energy song. For those of you who have listened to the song, it's a feel good, high energy, excellent piece of pop music, I would say, actually. It's a really good song. I really like it. Gets me really in the mood to do stuff. I feel like I want to move. If I need to go out and do something in the world where I'm moving, that would be a good song for me to listen to. Especially watching Pitbull perform it live. It's even better live when Pitbull is just on his own performing it, for me. Because I really get to take the energy from him through the fucking computer screen. It's even better. But when Kesha performed it, wet soggy sock. If I had to go out into the world and do something after watching and listening to Kesha's version on her own, I would feel a bit deflated. I'd feel a bit, well, that didn't really get the blood pumping. I'd feel a bit underwhelmed. And that was the final piece of information that I needed. That was the final experiment that I needed to run. To actually watch the singer perform the song on her own. And then I started to look at a whole bunch of cover versions of Pitbull's songs. And the same thing started to happen. I would see these really talented musicians, with their little acoustic guitars, playing the song, and I'd be sort of thinking, yeah, you guys who are covering Pitbull's songs, yeah, you're covering them well, technically. You're on pitch, you're on time, there's nothing wrong with the instrument playing, you've got a good voice, but it's missing something. It's missing energy. It's missing the front man. Pitbull is integral to these songs. He's not just some fucking side salad at the other side of the table. You know the way when you're ordering your main course and you have the big steak in front of you. You've got the big, bowl of chips there. Steak and chips. And you know the way sometimes you get a wee bit of side salad there, a wee tomato and, a bit of fucking lettuce and parsley. It's not as if Pitbull is a bit of lettuce, tomato and parsley on the side of your plate as garnish. Fuck no. I actually would make the case if I had to actually choose, which I know is a very unfair thing to say because it's a collaboration. Whether it's Pitbull and Kesha, Pitbull and Jennifer Lopez, Pitbull and fucking Neo, it doesn't matter. It's a collaboration. What makes the song great is everyone's input. So I know what I'm about to say is a bit unfair because what makes these songs great is the collaborative effort of all parties involved. But if I had to just stay with one of them, if I had to take one of them and, if I had to go to one of their shows, who would I choose? If I had to go to Neo on his show performing the song solo, Kesha's solo show, or Pitbull's solo show, which one would I go to? Pitbull every day. I choose the rapper over the singer. But that's the thing, folks. Not only can we learn from this episode about the value of running a fair experiment and not digging our hole and, basically running away from this idea of challenging our pre-existing worldview, not only can we learn this from the episode, but, we can learn something broadly in the arena of performance here. Do you have to be technically the best at anything? Sometimes technique, folks, and technical, capability, sometimes it can be overblown. There are plenty of other singers and vocalists in the world that are technically better than Pitbull. But you know what Pitbull has? He's got a very unique voice. So he's got a very unique voice. It's Pitbull. There's nobody sounds like Pitbull. Sure, he's a rapper. He can't sing extremely well, but he's got a very unique voice. That's one thing. So he's already unique as soon as he opens his mouth. But secondly, he has something that, in my experience, most singers and most musicians don't have, which is stage presence, aura, and charisma, and the ability to actually perform the song live, and the ability to establish a virtuous cycle of energy transfer between himself and the audience that lasts throughout the whole song and the entire fucking set that he's performing. Pitbull is a frontman. He's an entertainer. He knows how to perform a piece of music. And he knows how to use his raw charisma, his raw confidence, his raw personality traits. He knows what he wants to be. He's not trying to be something he isn't. Sure, he's Mr. Worldwide. Pitbull's a cool name. He knows what he wants to be. And I never see Pitbull pretending to be someone else. He's at complete ease with who he is. And when he's up there on stage, not only does he perform the song brilliantly, but he is present. He's not on autopilot. I cannot tell you how many fucking singers I see on fucking autopilot. I'll give you an example, just to finish off the show. Britain's Got Talent was recently on, and my mother showed me a performance of some girl who plays the harp and sings. I can't remember her name, but there's some girl from Northern Ireland who got to the final of Britain's Got Talent, I believe. She plays the harp, that big massive instrument that you pluck. She plays the harp and sings. And she was giving her performance in the finals. And my mother showed me the performance. I didn't watch the show. She just showed me the performance. I think she was singing that song, Electric Dreams. What way does it go? We'll always be together, together in electric dreams. You know that song. She was singing that one. And I watched the performance. Now, she's only a kid. You know, she might only be 16 or 17. So, look, this isn't me trying to be, you know, nasty. Not at all. You know, she's got a great future ahead of herself. What a great platform if she can just keep herself together and not get fucking, you know, suffocated by the entertainment business and lose her way. You know, she has a very encouraging future ahead of her if she has the right people around her and she's managed properly. But I watched her performance. And you know what I noticed? Technically, great. She sang on pitch. Her harp playing was excellent. Technically, from a technical standpoint, great performance. Great execution, I should say, of singing and harp playing. But you know, whenever I watched it, you know the feeling I had? I had the soggy wet sock feeling. I had this feeling of, I don't think this young lady is actually present. I don't think she's actually in the moment. I think she's in her own head trying to regurgitate the pitch perfect version that she has rehearsed probably thousands of times in a rehearsal room. That's what she looked like to me. She didn't look like she was present in the moment with the crowd, with the judges, actually performing in the moment, giving us a unique version of the song. I didn't get that impression at all. I got the impression that she was desperately diving into her memory archive to pull out an autopilot version of the song. She felt like she was on autopilot. She felt like she was singing from an autopilot perspective. She wasn't present. She wasn't capturing the moment. She wasn't giving a unique performance. She was just regurgitating something. Yeah, she's technically very capable, very good singer, very good harp player, but the performance lacked what we would colloquially call heart. She didn't feel like she was leaving it all out on the stage like Bono, like Freddie Mercury, like Pitbull. You see those three people that I've just named? Now I know they are far more experienced. They have honed their craft more than this young lady, but it serves as a good example. This young lady on Britain's Got Talent, pitch perfect, no problem. But the soul of the performance was missing. It didn't feel like she was leaving it all out there. It didn't feel as if she was drawing on the energy of the room in the moment. It didn't feel as if she was taking that energy and trying to throw it back out into the audience so that there was this virtuous cycle of energy exchange. It didn't feel like there was any of that. It felt like she was standing at the microphone on autopilot, trying to remember her pre-rehearsed version of the song. In other words, she wasn't there on stage. She was somewhere else in her mind. She wasn't with us as an audience. And I think the judges could feel it, and I think the audience could feel it too. The soul was missing from the performance. And that, folks, is what Pitbull has in bucket loads. He has heart and soul, and the man gives his all when he's up there on stage. He gives you a unique version of the song. He's not going off some pre-rehearsed script. Yes, I know, there's only so far you can move on a stage. But you know, whenever I watch Pitbull live, it feels like he's giving me, every time I watch him perform the same song, it feels like I'm getting a unique version of the song. And I enjoy each variation that he offers to me as the consuming public. And you know, For all of us out there, folks, there's a lot we can learn from Mr. Worldwide, actually. Hopefully, you can see that from the show. Because I was pretty sure that a rapper would not be getting placed in the same category as Bono and Freddie Mercury. I didn't think that at all. But here I am. Most rappers, I still don't like what it is that they produce. They might be fine people. They might be admirable people. I don't know them personally. That's not a character assassination attempt by me. I just don't like rapping in general. But there's always an exception, folks. And Pitbull has taught me that perhaps I should keep my mind just a little more open with regards to the art of rapping. Because if it's done properly, I can actually enjoy it. And I'm glad I've come to those conclusions. Because now I get to enjoy music and collaborations that I would previously have actually just cast to the side. I would have said, no, not listening to that. That's not my genre of music. That's not my cup of tea. So Mr. Worldwide, all the way here from Ireland, I want to offer my gratitude to Mr. 305. Where does that even come from, folks? Mr. 305. What does that even mean? Pitbull, if you're watching the show, I know you were recently here in Northern Ireland. In fact, Belsonic is on at the moment. It's one of those festivals up in Belfast. And I believe Pitbull was actually playing at Belsonic on Tuesday past, just a couple of days ago. So, Mr. Worldwide, if you're still in Ireland and you want to have a chat with the Bandido, if you want to sit down and do a little episode with the Bandido, and we could talk all about it, you have the invitation to come on to the show, Pitbull. I'm sure you're probably away in some other part of the world, but look, just hit up the Bandido. Leave a comment down below. I'm happy to have you on the show. I'm happy to express my gratitude for you managing to actually change my perspective a little on rapping. We could talk about it all on the show. We going down, Pitbull? Are you down for an episode on Bandido Talks? A little guest appearance? Shoot me a message, Pit. I'll have you on, no problem. Anyway, folks, that is everything from us this afternoon. Have we got... Oh, fuck, we've got some people in the live chat. I wasn't paying attention to the live chat. When you get up and going, folks, when you do the show, we're at 1 hour and 30 minutes. Again, I thought this show was going to conclude far sooner. And then you see, Pitbull gets me up and going. I thought we would wrap this up in 40 or 50 minutes, but here I am, 1 hour and 30 minutes in. And it looks like we've got some people in the live chat. Let's have a look at the live chat. Let's see. Let me get my phone up here. I don't want to take the monitor off my main screen. Okay. Let's have a look. We've got 3 live chats here. The chat is active, folks. Pitbull seems to have got people's juices flowing. Let's see. Let's see what it says. We go from the top. We have Quiz22 in the chat. Quiz22, our mate Quiz22, one of the loyal followers of Bandido Talks. Let's see what Quiz is saying. He's actually got 3 comments in the live chat. Let's go from top to bottom. So, he says the following. Comment number 1. Pitbull is great. Mr. 305, Mr. Worldwide. Good choice, Bandido. Sometimes with music, you just like what you like. Well, look, that's the thing. I thought I had a very definite taste in music, and I do. There is definitely, broadly speaking, I really like movie scores. So Hans Zimmer, John Williams, James Newton Howard, any of those people who do movie scores, that instrumental music. I really like that. So that's absolutely a preference music-wise. Now, I also like, as I've said, some classic rock. You know, I like Oasis. You know, I really like U2, Queen, The Police, Phil Collins, a bit of Bon Jovi. You know, that would also be another type of music that I also enjoy. Pitbull, really, I couldn't believe it, folks. I couldn't believe it. Just a couple of weeks ago, as I start to dive back down the Pitbull rabbit hole. Because as I said, you know, back in 2010, 2011, 2012, 2013, I do remember listening to quite a bit of Pitbull's music. I just didn't really realize who Pitbull was. And you know, only a couple of weeks ago, he comes onto my radar again. But you see, the Bandido's a different man now. The Bandido was a cub back then. You know, 13, 14 years of age. Didn't know shit about the world. You know, this concept of running experiments, you know, getting feedback. You know, I'm a much more fair man these days. So, you know, look, Pitbull, huge admiration for him. I really enjoy not only his live performances, but you know what? Again, I want to reiterate this. I actually do like his rapping. So it's not as if I'm just tuning in because he's a great frontman, a great performer. I actually do enjoy his raps. Didn't think I'd be saying that. But there's always an exception, folks. And maybe there are other rappers out there. You know, let me know down in the comments. Are there other rappers out there who are like Pitbull? You know, who are able to fuse together, you know, sort of the genre of rapping and the genre of pop music, you know, a bit of singing, a bit of rapping. Maybe there are. He's certainly opened my mind up. I'm not going to close off those options now in the same way that I would have done previously. So anyway, let's have a look now. So that's Quiz's first comment. What else does he say? He says, a Yu-Gi-Oh reference, Bandido, is in rare form today. You know, folks, Yu-Gi-Oh is great. I know people are going to say, it's a kid's show. I know some people are going to say that. But you know, we talked about this as well with Avatar: The Last Airbender. You know Avatar Aang, Katara, Sokka, Zuko, Uncle Iroh, Fire Lord Ozai. You know, it's a kid's show, yes. I understand that kids can definitely enjoy the show, but folks, let's be honest, whether it's Avatar: The Last Airbender or Yu-Gi-Oh! You know, Yu-Gi-Oh! Has some super interesting themes in it, actually. Yeah, I know, the kids get all wrapped up in, you know, the card game and the monsters that appear out and the holograms and all of this sort of stuff. Like, yeah, I understand. There's lots of action in Yu-Gi-Oh! But when you actually look at some of the themes in it, very interesting. There's some really interesting little golden nuggets. Maybe we'll do a show about Yu-Gi-Oh! About the Pharaoh, about Joey, about Tristan, Taya, Kaiba. Very interesting character as well. There's a lot to learn from Kaiba. And you know, actually, as the Yu-Gi-Oh! Series goes on, it gets even more interesting for me. As you get into the Orichalcos in Season 4, as you get into this whole sort of the Pharaoh's ancestral past. Super interesting stuff. I really enjoyed Yu-Gi-Oh! Pitbull, he's like polymerization. He fuses together one thing from here and another thing from there. That's what I like about Pitbull. He has that knack for being able to do that. But yes, a Yu-Gi-Oh! Reference indeed. Perhaps the Bandido is in rare form. Now, let's have a look at Quiz's final comment. He says, 305 is the area code for... I can't actually see this. Let me see. Let me try and get this up on screen. There's something blocking my phone. Let's have a look. I can't see the full... Let me see. There we go. Now I can see it. I should have done that before. So it says, Quiz says, 305 is the area code for Miami, where he's from. I see! Quiz seems to know quite a little bit about Pitbull, actually. We seem to have some overlapping interest in Pitbull's music. You see, if you're born at a certain time, I mean, as I've already said, when I was sort of in my early teens, Pitbull was just exploding. He just had one enormous hit after the next. One big hit after the next. And so Pitbull is he sort of brings me back to my childhood a little bit. There's definitely a connection there. And some of his music is terrific. Really good stuff. But I didn't realize that. 305 is the area code for Miami, where he's from. So Mr. 305, Mr. Worldwide. Folks, let me tell you something else about Pitbull that's actually interesting. I didn't mention this earlier in the show. Pitbull has a great sense of style. That's another thing. You know, how many times, again, I'm going to pick on the singers here. You know, how many times do you see a singer go up on stage and you look at them and just go, what is this up on stage? You know, the singer just looks like a mess, wearing baggy clothes. You know, they just don't look as if they know who they want to be, who they are. You see them up on stage and it's totally uninspiring. It's all over the place. Pitbull, though, he knows exactly who he wants to be, and he's got a great style. You know, to my knowledge, folks, you know, I'm 5'7", so I'm not that tall. 5'7", pretty small. I think Pitbull's about my height, actually. And you know, we've perhaps got a similar build as well. And Pitbull has managed to find a style that really suits his height and figure. And he looks great up on stage. You know, he's got a real... His appearance really is striking initially. You know, before you even know who he is, whether, you know, you may not know he's a rapper, you may think he's a singer, you don't actually, before you know who he is, you just look at him and you go, man dresses well. You know, he has an identity. He knows who he wants to be. You know, a little bit like the Bandido. You know, the Bandido has his own identity too. Some people will like it, some people won't. Some people will look at me and say, he looks like a retard. He's wearing a red bandana, sunglasses, and a fucking white hat, and he's got this long hair at the moment. You know, why is he wearing a tank top? But you know, some people will like it, some people won't. But you see, here's the thing. I can guarantee you that whether you like the Bandido or not, you will recognize him. You won't forget him. You know, if I do a show and I upload a YouTube short or some sort of a video, you know, people may not like what I'm saying. They may not like even how I look, but it's definitely going to distinguish me from other people. And that's the feeling I get from, I was going to say Timber, from Pitbull. I was going to call him Timber. That's the feeling I get from Pitbull. You know, his style is instantly recognizable. You know, he's got the baldy head. You know, he wears these nice tailored suits, nice tailored shirts and trousers. There's no baggy fucking clothing there. Everything's trim and it hugs his figure. And even though he's only like 5'7", 5'8", whatever he is, he looks like a fucking giant up on stage. Isn't that funny? You know, so he's not that big in reality, but when he's up there, the way he dresses, the way he moves, the way he performs, he looks huge. Far bigger than what you would think. But he has a real sense of identity in his style. I really like his style. He's got a good, you know, it's something that, again, a lot of musicians, a lot of singers, fuck me. You know, I see singers and there's nothing about them that makes me remember them. You know, folks, it's not just good enough to have a good voice. There are fucking tons of people in the world who can sing well. It's the same with me here on the show. There are lots of other people who speak better than the Bandido. You know, they're philosophers. They use fancy words. But you know, there's something to be said, and this is another one of these things that Pitbull can teach us. There's something to be said for having an identity, for being instantly recognizable. And that's the thing. sometimes that's actually more powerful than the actual ability in question, whether it's singing or anything else. I recognize Pitbull. I know who he is. When I see him, it's like, that's Pitbull. When I see some of these other singers, I'm looking and thinking, who are these people? What do they stand for? What is their identity? And I forget who they are. You know, they just drift out of my mind. There's nothing unique about them. They don't have a unique voice. They don't have a unique style. They don't have a unique stage presence. Notice with Pitbull, he ticks all three boxes. He has a unique voice. I'm not saying he has the technically, finest voice on the planet, but he has a unique voice. He definitely has a unique style. And he has a unique stage presence. Boom, boom, boom. This has nothing to do with fucking technical ability, folks. And I think a few singers could learn a thing or two from Pitbull and not rely so heavily on their voices and their talent. Because sometimes, folks, people just want a good time. People just want to feel someone else's energy. They just want to go to an event, go to a performance. They're not looking for technical perfection. They're just looking for you to hit a basic threshold of competency, and then they want your energy. They want your energy. That's why they're at a live show. You can listen to the pre-recorded song anytime. People are coming to a live show because they want you to perform the song with some energy, with some distinction, in a way that's different to the live recording. They're looking for something unique. But some singers don't seem to get this, for whatever reason. But anyway, that's our final comment. Let me see. Have we anything else on this phone? It doesn't look like we do. Let me knock this off here. I was able to get that last comment. So anyway, that draws the show to a close. We want to thank Quiz22 for getting into the live chat. He left us 3 comments there. We appreciate it, Quizzed. Your continued interaction with the show. Very much appreciated. That draws everything to a close, folks. Look, if you're watching the live show replay, get down into the comments section. Let me know what you thought. Do you agree or disagree with my analysis on Pitbull? Do you agree or disagree in general with, what I have to say about rappers in general? Maybe you do, maybe you don't. Leave your insights down in the comments section. Folks, hit the like button. Hit the thumbs up if you found it useful. Hit the thumbs down if you thought I was full of shit. And then finally, folks, in general, if you like what we do here on Bandido Talks, then feel free to subscribe to the channel here on YouTube. Folks, we are live. Universal Bandido time. That means the Bandido does his live shows as and when he feels like doing them. So you're going to have to subscribe to get notified when we have a live show upcoming or any upload in general. Folks, I'll remind you of something else. We're not just live on YouTube, we're also live over on Rumble. You can use the scrolling a black banner below to direct yourself over to Rumble. We do other live shows over on Rumble. It's more political. It's more US-based stories. So we have actually 40 live shows over on Rumble, completely different to the live shows we do here on YouTube. So if you want more live show content, head over to Rumble, subscribe to Bandido Talks over there as well. And then finally, folks, we are also active on X. X is a funny place, folks. There's a lot of AI slop. Holy fuck. There's a lot of AI slop. But it is a way for the Bandido to get some ideas for his shows. I do see some interesting things on X, but we're also active over there. Follow Bandido Talks over on X. And again, it's a good way for you to get notified about an upcoming live show. We'll always post when we have an upcoming live show over on X. So subscribe here on YouTube, subscribe over on Rumble, follow over on X. Folks, that is everything from me this afternoon. It's over and out from the Bandido, Mr. Worldwide. Who knows where he is at the moment? Mr. 305. He was at Belsonic a few days ago in Belfast. Who knows where he is? Folks, pass on this show to Mr. Worldwide. Let Pitbull know. If he wants to come on to the show, the invitation is open. But we'll have to leave it in his capable hands. Anyway, folks, that is everything from me. Enjoy the rest of your day. And with all of that said, it is over and out. This week on YouTube live from the Bandido.